Okay, let me preface this. I guess we can start by saying that this is a video analysis of an essay that is an analysis. And according to a lawyer guy on Reddit, um, it's probably not up to his standard for legal text or creative writing, which legal text is creative writing, according to him. So keep this in mind. If you're a lawyer, you probably will not enjoy this stream. And even if you're not a lawyer, you probably won't enjoy this stream because we're trash and that's just how it goes. So first, I made this little banner here. You can see it's for Tactics Ogre. I put a lot of stuff together. You can see there's some sort of trolley problem in the background. Some of the characters, one of the characters is deciding to pull the lever for the trolley problem. I put in Kronos eating his son over there because I felt like that was relevant to the ogre point. That seems like ogre behavior, like top tier ogre behavior. So I put that on there. And you can see the character screaming over there, and that's about it. That's what the banner is. So today, I guess we'll be going over Tactics Ogre, specifically. I mean, just Tactics Ogre, but specifically, I guess Reborn, and specifically an essay called Tactics Ogre, Reborn, Ruminations on Resentment, Regret, and Retribution, written by a really lame author named Buru5, and also known as Forrest on Mastodon, at Buru5, at Mastodon Games, not my instance. But it does fit for my purposes, and I post a lot because I have no life. So, yeah, I guess Pablo here is my host. He's the other writer here. If you've been, I don't know. I'm not going to preface all this crap. He's going to ask me some questions about the game and about the essay, and I'm going to answer the questions to the best of my ability, under oath. So that's what we're here for. Yeah, there we go.
All right. Yeah. I'm really this is a lot of fun. The last couple we did were pretty fun and just earnest, and like just I love the lack of pretension that we're trying to bring. I fail at that a lot, I think. Anyway, that's just on my mind. I wanted to put it there. Like, this is such a cool, nice thing, and I really enjoyed that intro and that lead-in. So, Tactics Ogre. I've never played this game. I'm really bad at tactical RPGs, so we're gonna let Buru Forrest He's gonna take us through that journey, and it was like a life journey, I think, or like a retrospective, like some periods in his life. So this was the second essay, I believe. So my first question: why FF12? Why something maybe on the surface for the unacquainted, like not really the same kind of game? Why this one second after Final Fantasy 12?
So why did I play Tactics Ogre after Final Fantasy 12? There's a few reasons, and one of them one of them's easy, and one of them's kind of like subtle, but it's easy as well. So, my first question is why not? My next question, my next statement is
other games, though, right? Just to give a little answer to that, there's a lot of other games chosen to beat it.
That's true. There are a lot of other games. That's true. So I hadn't played this game before. I like tactical JRPGs, like Final Fantasy Tactics, and this is the only big one that I hadn't actually played at that point. But also because I believe the director and writer worked on this game from Final Fantasy 12. So coming from Final Fantasy 12 to Tactics Ogre is pretty made sense for me. I also got a Switch, and the Switch needed to be used due to sunk cost fallacy. If you're aware of that, are you aware of that concept?
I am the sunk cost. So you thought that to validate your experience with FF12, you'd have to like play something to justify the time that you sunk. I'm understanding you. I wasn't tuned out. I was just trying to get up. I want to make sure the stream is up on one of my monitors so I can make sure I'm not having to look back to see you, like your face a little bit. But yeah, no, the sunk cost fallacy. That's a really good answer. But I feel like you got some more to say, right? Or you want to go to the next one?
No, I mean for Tactics Ogre, that's pretty much it. That's why I played it. I wanted to play a tactical RPG.
Well, my understanding is that because my setup there, and I think you nailed it, right? It's like you because I did that. That's why I played 16, right? Was to kind of justify the PS5 that's like kind of rotting on my desk. So and of course, I wanted to make sure we got in up front, that relationship between Final Fantasy 12 and Tactics Ogre, and why there might be I think there straight up are a lot of connections there, at least thematically from what you've told me. Why? Well, I think you've answered it, right? I don't want to ask redundant questions. You got this version because it was on the Switch, right?
Yeah, so this was the newest version, and it looked cool. Like I think the graphics are kind of remastered a little bit. I think it's based on the PSP version primarily, but it's enhanced a little bit. Um, Again, yeah, like the sunk cost fallacy, obviously for the Switch. And I guess for those who don't know, Tactics Ogre, I guess we can do a brief rundown since you asked about the version. Tactics Ogre came out for the Super Nintendo, and it was called Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together. And it was then ported, I think, to the Sega Saturn and then the PlayStation, and then eventually it was ported to the PSP um, as Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together. And Tactics Ogre is actually named after a Queen song that's called Let Us Cling Together on their 1976 album Day at the Races, I think. I know this because I had a lot of these albums when I was a kid. Ogre Battle itself, which is the series that Tactics Ogre came from, Tactics Ogre is technically the second game in the Ogre Battle series. Ogre Battle comes from the name of a Queen song as well on the album Queen 2. And the first Ogre Battle game is called March of the Black Queen, which is also a song title on Queen 2, which is the same album that Bohemian Rhapsody's on. So you can kind of say that Tactics Ogre probably wouldn't exist without Queen, which you can see I added some Queen images into the stream because of that. Some Freddie Mercury images that you might see come by. So yeah, this series probably exists because of Queen and Freddie Mercury, which I think is pretty cool. Right? It's pretty based, as the kids say. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great answer. I like that addition. Yeah, and I had written down. You might notice I'm taking notes because I want to keep up because I get so my mind gets so distracted sometimes, even though like you're so like incredibly interesting. Um, so I was going to ask about Let Us Think Together because I can remember like when you said about the original version, I immediately remember that phrase because it's such like an enticing phrase. Let us cling together and March of the Black Queen, right? Like such awesome subtitles. And like I just wanted to, I was going to ask about that, but you answered it. And I was going to make a joke about all the ports, right? The plethora of ports. I call them portals. Like it's just the game is portals. But the interesting thing I would add, maybe you would like, I don't know, but like that structure, Tactics Ogre. This is my game. This is the name of my game. And then like here's the name of a Queen song that affects it. Like I didn't really think of it like this when I did this. We just kind of been aiming this way, but with FF16, and you've done this with your images and names of your stuff. Like I'm just putting Taking Back Sunday lyrics on pictures, and my titles are all from like Locke's Leviathan. So we're almost like inheriting and transforming like that dynamic, and like that's some of the things. That's why I'm glad we're doing these videos, right? Like because it's allowing me to figure out like where this production we've made, like games, like where it's coming from and how it was built. So I don't know if you want to talk on that. I can move on to the next one. About the next one, I get really into the essay. So before we really get into the content of the essay, I don't know. I don't know what you're thinking about or anything I didn't include. Maybe something they might need to know up front. That's really interesting. That wasn't in the questions that the general question outline and layout we've prepared for y'all. For me and him, really, because it's just us, but it's awesome.
Freddie Mercury is on this as well. You can see his picture come up sometimes on the stream. Anyways, so no. I think it's really interesting that you brought up the point about the music because we both incorporate music and steal lines from music and put them in our writing. So it is definitely interesting that other creative people do that as well. And then one guy made an entire video game series named after music, Ogre Battle, right? I'm kind of upset that he didn't go with Ogre Battle instead of changing the name to Tactics Ogre, just why not Ogre Battle? Let us clean together. Why, keep it 2 queen names. Like I don't know why he changed it to Tactics Ogre. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all that I wanted to add on it. I thought that was an interesting point you brought up. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that is cool. I thought it was something too, but if it comes back, I'll say it. So you start the essay. Can you scroll? You scroll down just a tad. It's like I put it. It's on the screen. I'm trying to. Just like the first couple of paragraphs, so they could see. Or future viewers on the YouTube could see. That's good. Um,
None of that got heard, but I'll try not to do that again. I blame the wine. Anyways, Yasumi Matsuno, this was the game that put him on the map because it's like a dark game. The narrative is really dark and kind of the morally gray. I think one of the first computer games for the Super Nintendo, especially that traverse those themes. So yeah, I'm not going to harp on that anymore because I don't want to talk about it again because I was on mute. But yeah, go ahead.
all right. So before I get into you and the summer friend, I thought of something I was gonna say, like about like quote unquote like stealing the artist line. Something that I read in a book. Um, it's a good book. Anyway, it talks about how to analyze literature. And that's kind of how I approach like video games. I think you do too, even if you weren't calling it that. In literary analysis, one great tool in your tool belt for literary analysis is the recognition that no story is original. Like there's nothing original really. Everything is built or transmuted. It's something you can see Hansel and Gretel in like Rush Hour. It's like the same freaking story. And that's how Carl Jung, not to bring too much Xenosaga into this, but like Carl Jung thought those things were manifestations of the universe. So that's why we were like discovering them. But like not that matters, but I like that these themes, even when we weren't trying to think about or write about the same things, there's no denying that it permeates, right? Like these people you're talking about, like Matsuno, like we got like 12 or 13 articles, and Matsuno or the company he keeps are involved in like 5 or 6 of these games. And a lot of that was like not intentional, I don't think, and some of it was. And it's just super cool that overlap, but not only that, but like this inheritance overlap. So anyway,
No, I like that idea. I like the idea that like the hero's journey, like story, is pulled out of the ether or like the universe, and like it was inevitable that somebody came up with it because it's just like floating around out there, like in the ether somewhere. It's a nice, fantastical thing to think about. I think that's cool. As far as like people influence each other, yeah, definitely. Because I mean, obviously, people influence each other all the time. Nothing is original. Everything's just built off, the groundwork, which was it. Which is, does anything have a beginning anywhere? Really, I don't know. That's a hard question. But everything's built on each other, right? So, I don't know. Yeah, sorry. I'm kind of just wine haze. So go ahead. Next question.
I'm going to derail this for a second. I think this relates to Tactics Ogre. I want to get more into Tactics Ogre, but like, yeah, I mean, everything's built off something. That's so absurd. Like, I roll so hard when like I hear about like Marvin Gaye's family like suing some other artist because the melody is in the same key and it's slightly similar. And it's like Marvin Gaye didn't invent that. The guy you're suing didn't invent that. The money you want is just dead trees with dead men drawn on it. I know that's like some like stoner garbage. I know like money has use, but you know what I'm saying. I see you nodding. It's like, yeah. So I love it when someone's like, I'm gonna put a Queen song on the cover of my house. I love when someone's like, I'm gonna make my character based on Snake Plissken, right? And I'm just gonna name the characters, and they're gonna know what I was influenced by. I'm so brazen about it because I want to give myself to the world. I don't want to make myself something to be idolized, and that's what I see in these games. That's the value that I think we bring. I think that brings the whole point. I don't want to ramble on.
I agree. I think it's cool. I think it's cool when you just like do theft, and then you put it in stuff. I think that's cool. I agree with you. I think people should be brazen about it. As long as like if you ask them about it, hey, like, oh, was the title of your game based on that Queen song? As long as they're like, absolutely, then it's just like, okay, that's cool. But if they're like, no, I came up with that myself, I would be like a little bit like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what's wrong with you? But if you're willing to engage with it and say that, yeah, that's absolutely where it came from, then yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So and I agree with you. So the problem, like the people that are like, I didn't steal it, are the same as the people that pretend they're original, right? And so it's like it's this refusal to understand that maybe I'm gonna say maybe because I don't know, but maybe the original, maybe the self is invented, and like what you're chasing is just an impossibility. So yeah, like yes, because like the person that lies about it also would feel bad if someone was. Let me take a step back. Like if someone said, "Okay, Let Us Cling Together" is a bad subtitle because you stole it from Queen. Like that person is also like not playing with a full deck, right? Like if they're like, "You stole that, so it's not cool." Like it's called an illusion. It's got a big boy like term for it. He's alluding to another work because the person that made this freaking video game believes in community and he believes he's part of the global hive mind and he believes that he's a part of the liquid human substance encapsulating the ball in the cosmic black, or he just is a nerd that likes to make video games. I don't know, man. This is cool. It's cool. And I wish I had more time. I'd love to be able to play games like this. Hopefully, I do.
Yeah, I mean, sure. What's your next question?
I
I don't want to harp on one thing. Like you had a lot of questions, and I have a lot of answers. So
It's okay. No, and I want you to do that, right? Because what I'm gonna do is when I think something's interesting, I will derail this for a second if you're okay with it. But when you feel it needs to move on, you be like, okay, can I get? You don't have to be nice about it. I don't hurt my feelings. I'm sensitive. But okay, so I want to read this thing because I want to know about this game because all the things we've been talking about so far. But why should I care about you and your summer friend if I want to understand this video game?
yeah, so there's an answer for that, and this was actually carefully thought out, actually, which I'm surprised when I reread through this how much I tried to make it relevant. So, and it's not. It's kind of hard to tell that it's relevant. So, one, you're wording like, should I care? Like, you probably shouldn't care. Like, you don't need to care. But the whole first section is covering stuff that it establishes like a few themes with real life examples that come up in this essay later on. So it sets the ground for concepts that are covered later in the game's narrative, specifically based on the title, which is Ruminations on Resentment, Regret, and Retribution. This section especially sets up things about resentment and jealousy, which are redundant words, right? They're kind of the same thing, but yeah, and just to sum it up, it just goes over in Charleston. I would grow up. I met I had a good friend there. We played every summer. I would leave. I would, be gone for the whole school year and come back, but we still remained friends. He was like way more athletic than I was. He was way more popular than I was. He was less strange than I was. We both liked video games. And that's about it. It establishes that I had, it hints, at least in this section, that I was maybe slightly jealous of him through the verbiage of how I wrote this. It also goes through a few other things about some stories about that tie in later to like time travel and things. So there's this one story in there where this summer friend, his friend lended me a Game Boy camera, and I for some fucking reason I took this Game Boy camera to Babbage's and like sold it for in-game credit without her like permission. And this is a true story, kind of outlining like how unempathetic I was when I was a kid. But with that, I was able to buy like Final Fantasy VII with in-game credit. And that was kind of like my first JRPG that I ever played for real. I think Final Fantasy VIII was the first one that I ever played. My neighbor played it, and I saw him play it, and I liked it. I thought the music was cool in that game, even when I was a kid. But Final Fantasy VII was the first game that I played, which kind of leads into this whole saga where I play RPGs. I probably wouldn't have played Tactics Ogre if I had never done that. But what I did was actually fucked up. I probably shouldn't have sold somebody else's shit like for money, and I actually had to go back because she escalated that real quick with her parents, and her parents went to my grandma and were like, your grandson's an asshole, and sold my my daughter's Game Boy camera, right? And we actually went back and got the Game Boy camera back, and then gave it back to her, and I don't remember how, but I got to keep Final Fantasy VII out of it. So that's how that happened. And I'll kind of go over. I go over all that here. You can see these events are significant because thanks to the in-store credit, I was able to purchase Final Fantasy VII. I spent countless nights playing that. And here's an image of like the same copy of Final Fantasy VII. I actually have the same copy. It's in my shelf over there. It's missing this too. But I mention here why this is important is I mention like would I go back in time and maybe like change what I did, and I think that becomes important later based on some narrative and gameplay things that are in this game. So this first section just kind of outlines, it kind of sets up everything else in the article by tying it into just kind of like a real world thing, which I wanted. From my first article was very clinical in that it just went through everything in the game. It didn't mention anything about my real life, and I didn't like that. I wanted this to be more like personal, and I wanted it to be more unique. And based on really, I wanted to be like Tim Rogers, and I think we've talked about this before, but I wanted to like incorporate personal, nostalgic stories into the essays, and that's what I started to do here. And this is the first time I tried to do it. I think I did it all right. I mean, it's amateur, but it does tie it in, and it comes up later. Most of these things. So hopefully that answers your question. I probably talked too much. It was probably most of it was incoherent. So
No, it's completely coherent. Like really, sometimes I don't know. I'm working on focus. Is one thing I'm working on, and like notes helps me. And I noticed just being just embracing, trying to be like okay with just like being unlikable sometimes or a weirdo or any of my other problems is like helping me. And like notes are weird, but no, it was good. It was good. I paid attention the whole time. I've got this idea. This idea. I want to move down. I want to kind of flip the script again. Because it's like it's super interesting. Like when you nailed in, I think what people appreciate about Rogers to like start with your most recent thing, talking about and work myself backwards, um, is like that embrace of the personal. Because while I decried like people who are so into themselves that they want to hoard like creativity over someone else and like have ownership of their creations, I don't think someone like Tim Rogers does that. Not that he's like the best person in the world, but he's really good. He is really good. Anyway, but I think people appreciate that. Like that, like, okay, like you don't have to be watching this, but you are because it's kind of cool. Because I'm just talking about who I was and what I did. So I want to go. I'm gonna skip ahead and then go back. We're gonna go back, and then I think ethics and utilitarian ethics will come in. I think this might be pretty good. Because I don't want to just skim over the personal story in favor of the video game that someone else made.
I mean, the personal story will come up again. So because it ties into the narrative plot, like I was saying. So I mean, you can go on with your questions. That's fine. Can I get another? Can I fill up my glass of wine? Just it'll take 1 second.
That's a great pause to skip this part because I was just waiting for you to do that so I can get another can of quote unquote soda, right? In that story, one element of resentment was towards your friend's athleticism. Is that the primary resentment? Is that the resentment in the story of your upbringing? That one story?
I don't know. I don't. That's what I put in the essay. I don't know if that's entirely true. I don't know if I was actually jealous of his athleticism. Um, I was more so. I'm very annoyed by people who are flaunt what they have. So he was very flaunty about it. He would do like athletic stuff. So I think that's what annoys me. That still annoys me to this day with people that do that. So maybe that had something to do with it. But that could be like rooted in just me being overall jealous of the fact that he can do it, if that makes sense. So maybe like it's something that I would probably have to sit down with a psychologist and figure out, or a psychiatrist. Sorry. Um, so yeah, maybe not something we can figure out here.
I feel like resentment versus jealousy.
Could you talk towards the phone, do you think? I think that would be better.
Do you think there's sincerely no difference? I could be completely louder. I was trying to be not as like violently loud as I normally am. What's the difference between resentment and jealousy, or do you think it's the same thing, the exact same thing?
I'm not sure. What is the difference between resentment and jealousy? I thought that they were very similar, but like, let's do some.
I think
Bitter.
I
It says. It says. Hold on. It says bitter. It says bitter indignation at having been treated unfairly. So that's an interesting one. So that seems to put a qualifier on there that you have to be treated unfairly. The state of feeling jealous. I think you can have resentment from feeling jealous, like, oh, that person's so much better than me, and then you have indignation towards them. That was at least what I understood. I don't think the treated unfairly part is necessarily needed. And of course, definitions are bullshit, right? So there's probably a different definition somewhere that we could find that supports my theory, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, it would be just semantics at the end of the day, right? What do you think? Do you think they're totally different?
I'm talking about the concept itself. Like the words don't even matter. Like the concept, I find interesting,
I
right?
think jealousy
Like,
will lead to resentment in all cases.
I think it could. I think resentment is. I don't know who resents someone for being treated fairly. And I'm
No
sure
one.
that happens. That's interesting, right?
No one, but one could be like, oh, I'm jealous of this person. They're so much better than me. And they could perceive that as unfair treatment. And then they become a resentment, which is like what I think happens because people are selfish and they're self centered. So they think, why does this person get to be so good at athletics? And naturally, the reason, there's a lot of reasons. But I mean, naturally, the reason is they put more effort into it than you did. That's the bottom line, right? And you're lazy, et cetera, et cetera. And you can't stand the fact that you're not willing to put in the effort. And you see somebody that is, and you're jealous, and you make up excuses like, well, I could do that too if I just, did training for 10 hours a day, blah, 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 blah. To me, somebody who says that is resentful, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, would you agree with that?
So. Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. What's your next point? We should keep going because we have a lot of content here to do.
Where we are on time? What time are we aiming for? Right? Because I don't necessarily have to get through all the questions, but I can kind of angle at the. Because I want to see the questions that don't have to be answered. I want them to, and but I want to take the interesting route. So you just have me so interested about like what it means to resent another human being, and about like exploring that. Like if you're exploring that while you're doing what I'm looking at in the top left corner here, dude. If you're looking at these goddamn neon squares and you're shifting in and out of the angles, okay, and at the same time you're thinking about resenting your friend, like I gotta understand that like a little bit. So that's all I was trying to do. And I want to understand that because when that resentment pops up again in in the video game, like I think that's gonna click, and that's gonna be so fucking awesome.
Yeah, we'll click. That's why we need to get there. I think your next question was one word about the gameplay and why.
Yes, let's do it. Let me do that. I forgot about that. No, you're right. You are right. Because like that, I hope you think that's a good question because I tried really hard on that. I think it's a great question that can lead to a lot of places. So the gameplay. If you're going to talk about the gameplay, one single word that if you do not mention, like you didn't play this goddamn video game.
I think the word I pick is redo. For real, redo. Is that a real word? But like if it is, it's redo. Yeah. So not only like does it play into the themes of like regret, like I want to redo something or I want to do something over again, but there's also two mechanics in the game that just let you do everything over and over again as many times as you want, which we will get into. But there's a mechanic that, from a gameplay perspective, this is a tactical game, and as you can see here in the upper left-hand corner, you're making turns. Like every turn, you're picking where your guy goes, you're doing an attack, and once that turn's over, it's over. Let's say like 3 turns from then, like your dude gets killed and you say, holy shit, if only 3 turns ago I hadn't put my guy there, right? There's actually a mechanic in the game that just lets you go back 3 turns and redo it. And there's a mechanic in the game that lets you go back. There's actually a mechanic in the game that lets you go back in the story and redo the story at any point, and it splits off in a time, like in a different timeline or branch. So this game is about abusing save states within the actual game for the story and the gameplay. And it's all endorsed by Matsuno, our buddy Matsuno.
I think okay. So I just thought this was funny, and I think you're right. This is not meant to like ridicule you in any way. I just thought it was really really funny. I control F for redo into essay, and I couldn't find it. And I wish you had talked about it. But that's so
I did.
interesting.
I didn't put redo in there because I probably used much more elegant wording. I know I talked about the like the the save stating. I definitely did. Maybe I didn't use the word redo, but when I saw your question, that's the only word that popped into my mind at that time. So
No,
that's
I think
really
it's
good.
perfect. I didn't want you to think I'm not being one of those people like, oh, but you did it. But actually, no, I'm not taking that anymore. I just thought it was like amusing. But I'm sure it is. Like, you're such an elegant writer. I just assumed I would find it like 10 times, and when I saw 0, I was like, no fucking way. Like, no fucking way. But no, that's great. I love that answer. So now, the music. I want to see this because you love music. Like you love music probably more than I do. I think I like playing it, but like not even that much sometimes. And like you like are really good, have really good taste. So like the music in it. What's the word? What's the word for the music in this game?
I think the word for the music is I have crescendo or windy strings, which is hyphen. So windy strings because like most of the songs, at least in Reborn, I haven't heard all like the original ones, but most of them in Reborn are like they just wind instruments like trumpets and stuff, and strings like violas and violins. So it's very orchestral, I guess you could say. But crescendo is one of those words, and I would say crescendo because there's I don't the guy who made the music for this game. We'll get into that, I guess, but one of the battle themes, particularly, I don't remember the name. I think it's like a town name, like Alvira or something, but it plays all the time for some reason. And this battle theme, like, it anticipates the player starting the battle and then doing like a bunch of inputs. So like it'll be like very soft and slow until you start putting in inputs, and it's not like contextual based. It's like literally the song is like for 1.5 minutes it's a slow, and then at 1.5 it builds up right when you're doing the action in the game, which I think a lot of composers for Final Fantasy and like Saga do this as well. But it just really it swells up right when your characters start like actually doing the commands you put in for them. So when you're putting in the commands, it's like a very soft, like kind of like thoughtful kind of music or like a little build uppy. And then when you put like somehow he's like timed it like a fucking wizard, where like right when your character starts doing shit, it like bursts into a crescendo. And I remember that very specifically, and I liked it. So that's why I put crescendo. One of the things I have here is that the composer for this was, I think his name is Hitoshi Sakamoto, and then his friend, which is Awada something. They're like us. They're friends, and they literally work on every game together ever. And they did Final Fantasy Tactics, which is by the same director. They did Final Fantasy 12, which is the same director, I think. So these three are like all together, and all the music sounds very similar, like orchestral kind of. I guess cinematic more so than melodic or poppy. Um, these guys also did the Vagrant Story OST, and they did some Tekken 6, and they also did Zoids. Some Zoids games. They're doing some Zoids, so they did some Zoids games.
I love Golden Zoids, man.
There you go about the music.
Okay, so they did not have windy. I could not control F windy strings, but like you did control. I did control F crescendo, and like I love that. Right. So this is like the vindication. Like I see you talking exactly in the essay. The way the main battle theme crescendos right when you start your first turn. Everything comes together incredibly well. You say. So yeah, that's great. That's a great way to talk about the music, and yeah, to do the music because like the guy that did the music with Xenoga Saga with the last video we did, he's great. I think it's the Chrono Trigger, I think. And the songs that there are great, but like he wasn't paying that much attention as much as this composer was. He was like just writing songs for fun, and he did 12 of them and turned them in. So that's great. Um, I have next that says other gameplay stuff. Time to come back to the topics. I mean, next I'm going into like the theme. So now I'm gonna bring back in like resentment and stuff. So is there anything like mechanically like interesting? Like the redo thing, like kind of was covered, so that's super cool. Um, I mean, in the genre of tactical RPG, I imagine, as I said, I don't really play these kinds of games because I'm bad at them. Because I was good at them. But someone watching this might want uh, to know more about mechanics, maybe. Because Redo, I think they would find interesting, especially if they tried the SNES version and didn't like it. If it didn't have that, maybe it did. I don't know. If you want anything else, I'm open the floor to you.
Okay, so for the gameplay mechanics, yeah, I don't think we've talked about the game much. I mean, it's a tactical game. You can see it in the GIF here, and all this footage, like from my 12 one, is from the Switch version of me actually playing the game, and then saving it from the Switch with the little button or whatever, and then putting it on my computer and fucking with it that way. So all this stuff is I did and put in the article myself. So this is me playing the game. I converted it to a GIF. You can see here that this is kind of hard to follow, but you can see I'm putting in a bunch of inputs, and I do Ghost Whale there. It hits somebody. I do another attack, and they parry it. So what I'm doing here is I'm like, damn, they parried my attack, but I wanted to kill that unit. So what happens is you can see, it's hard to follow in the GIF, but I basically go back in time and then do the attack and do a slightly different attack so that I can hit the enemy and kill him. Which is like almost like a save state, like what we were talking about the other day, like if I miss a jump, you know? But the game lets you do that within the game. So it's like if I miss the attack, let me just go back like 2 turns to when I did the attack and try a different attack. And then, do that. Like it goes into the regretful thing where it's like I regretted doing that attack, and I'm going to go back in time and just do a different attack. And in this way, like the game's actually fairly easy if you know how to manipulate this, and it kind of feels like save scumming in a way, if you know that term. But I mean, it's endorsed by the game. It's called I think it's called the Chariot Tarot card or whatever. It's just an option in the menu. So like it's totally endorsed. An interesting thing about the gameplay as well is that I think this is a new addition in the PSP version, which was kept for the Reborn version, which is based on the PSP version. So it's been in the game since the PSP version. I don't think it was in the original Super Nintendo and Sega Saturn versions or PlayStation version. But it does tie into the themes of the game, so I like it. It just kind of makes the game a little too easy. So yeah, there you go.
Okay, so that's where I'm gonna try to bring it home maybe for the viewers. Because sometimes like people are, no, I'm not gonna talk about people. Everyone is smart. Everyone's awesome. Yeah, I was gonna ask about how preserved the attack redo was, like if it was something from the original, but you covered that. You don't think it was in some of the early ones. But now I'm even starting to really figure out how to talk about. I mean, you call it resentment and regret. I forget the third one. I'm on my second beer, so I forget the second one.
Retribution.
Retribution, yeah. What you do after you've been scorned. But I see it, right? Like, okay, playing a video game is just sitting in your room playing a video game. But there's nothing original. Like I'm gonna make this fucking video a movie. This is gonna be a movie that people have to watch in film school. Like to want to redo something, like to have regret is to want to redo something. And there's not really that much of a difference between regretting selling a game you didn't own to get a game you didn't have that would change your life to end up right now talking to me on a screen.
Right. Yeah.
There's not that much difference between that and I should have guarded that.
Yeah, there's not much difference. What if I had an option to go back a few turns, in this case 20 years, 20 turns, and not sell the Game Boy camera? Would I do that? Probably not in this case, but there might be situations in which I would do that. But who knows how that would play out. In this game, it's kind of easy to tell how to play out, especially if you manipulate to your liking, and it's within a short window and within one battle. But in real life, who actually knows? I think the Retribution
that way, right? Because most modern games have these things. Final Fantasy 16 had, we'll talk about this probably tomorrow, but it had items that would they had 4 or 5 different items you could equip, and they each would like break the game basically. Like, you could still preserve some of the integrity of the challenge if you like use them like selectively, but like one made it where every dodge it would tell you what button to press. Another one would like make it where basically you couldn't die. I didn't use like any of these. But they're just baked in, like you're giving them at the fucking beginning of the game. They're quite like you may think that like they're endorsed, you know? But I'm like, if you're really playing the game, not this. The redo on this sounds pretty fair. Like I feel like I would probably use the redo on this. But like the items in FF16, and that's not just that. There's so many like Super Mario. Like they're playing. Like maybe Young was right. They're playing to this human belief and like if I could go back, I would. So this game lets me go back. It's a game that lets me go back, and that's why it's so beautiful that in your opening scene you've already gone back. You've played this game. You've gone back already. So that's so freaking cool. Okay, in a video game, look, dude, I don't care about reading and writing. I don't read books, all right? So I don't give a flying F about themes. So can you tell me why theme might be important enough for you to write about in a game and what you think it adds to the human experience of playing the video game?
Yeah, sure. So themes. Okay, if I understand your question, it's why are themes important, and are they important to video games? And if they are, how do they add to video games?
So what do you think about it? Because I'm interested in you, my friend, and I don't care. You don't have to prove it scientifically. Your opinion is better than science.
Well, your opinion's better than science as well. By that logic, everybody's opinion's better than science, but ours are actually the most valid opinions. I would imagine. I would say that themes are not important all the time. Obviously, it depends on like the game, right? So if you're playing like Tetris, you probably don't need themes there. You probably don't need narrative themes. But if your game has a narrative and it has a story and it's trying to tell a story, it needs to have themes. Obviously, it needs to have like concepts that it's delving into for any narrative-driven game. Which Tactics Ogre is very much a narrative-driven, thematic game that tries to make you think, and it doesn't try to make you think in a way that's like pretentious, where it's like, oh, look at all these big concepts and things. It's just like it's just people killing each other, like, and then them saying stuff to each other. That's literally the whole game, and it's kind of sparse too. Um, so it's interesting in that way. It doesn't really jam it down your throat, but it is a very narrative-driven and thematic game. Um, Obviously, it gives the player stuff to think about. Um, and maybe I think themes are important because you relate them to your own life, or in some cases you may like learn something from them, right? Or learn, and you might change the way you think about something, or change something in your life, or whatever, right? So obviously themes are important. Um, I think the biggest theme in this game is I think resentment is the biggest theme, and I think I probably should have put that first in the title. I think Ruminations on. Wait, is it first in the title? I can't remember. Oh, it is. Resentment is.
In order.
Yeah, it is. It says
Probably in order.
yeah, resentment. Yeah, resentment is the biggest theme because I think resentment, um, maybe regret too, but like resentment kind of boils everything down. I think jealousy and envy are super important in this game. And I can explain why if you want me to. I guess, unless you have another question.
I mean, the notes I had. Okay, I'm getting progressively more incoherent, but I said themes in Tetris. I'm gonna skip that. But people killing each other. Like I don't think. Like I think people killing each other is like a very heavy theme. I think prison is a theme, right? Like themes. I think the more simple they are, like the better they are because they apply to more of us. And that's why I asked that question. I asked that question because like some people just play video. It's just playing video games. It's just another thing they do. But I just love this craziness that like in video games, in computer games, it's to hold the theme, one of our mini themes. I don't know, it's the beauty that you can find, the beauty that you can carve yourself with your own mind. Um, so I think you've explained it well. Why theme is important. If I add, I would say it's important because theme is what gets me to care about your garbage. If there's not a theme, like the theme of Tetris for me is like ADHD, right? Or it's like pattern recognition is the theme. It might be a little bit of a sterile or clinical kind of theme, but there's a theme in Tetris. But but yeah, and what does it add? It adds like the human experience, right? And I think you touched on that, even if you didn't say that. It's like how I get this to matter to me, other than I'm just like pushing buttons on a controller. It's just I don't want to just be just jacking off all day. I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to play a video game, and I want to be able to like make it important by virtue of my own mind, because all this other garbage doesn't matter. So with that in mind, I think if you name, look, we're men, we name our sons things that are important to us, but I also name my essays with maybe not equal, but very much trying to be as equal importance. So resentment. We got to talk about the game, man. Resentment. What? Who resents? You got to
Yeah,
go
so
to yes.
so there's a lot of resentment in this game, and I'll just go over the main source of resentment, but I have to give some prefix or prefaces before then. So yeah, I think in my opinion, like I was saying, resentment is one of the central concepts of the game. Um, the game is essentially, when you boil it down to it, it's like about an island. I think I haven't played in a long time, but I think the island name is Valeria, and there's like a bunch of different kingdoms at war in Valeria, and they're all warring with each other, and they're trying to rule the island of Valeria. But that's all like a side note. Like the game is essentially about like three friends, and their names are Denim, who is the main character, Vice, who is his childhood's best friend, and then Kashua, who is Denim's sister. So these are all friends. One of them's, two of them are related. Vice is not related. He's a childhood friend. And the resentment here, it kind of just starts at the beginning of the game. So like Vice and Denim are BFFs or whatever. They're like best friends forever, right? But Vice really has always been secretly resentful of Denim. So one, Vice has been like in love with his sister Kashua, not Vice's sister, but Denim's sister Kashua. But Kashua only sees him as a friend and spends all of her time with Denim. So resentment builds up there. Denim had like a really full and happy upbringing. He had a full family.
Just check the stream real quick. Is the stream weird?
No, not for me. I don't see any like drop stream. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, my bad. Yeah, are you good now?
Hold on, this guy gives me an ad for some reason. No, I can see in the top right corner though. Now we're good. So was there something?
No, it wasn't anything except the video or our webcams went out. But what I was saying is that, where did I stop? So Denim, Kashua, and Vice. Vice loves Kashua, but Kashua doesn't like him. Vice is jealous of Denim for all the time that his sister spends with them because he's in love with his sister. Also, he's resentful of like Denim's upbringing. He had a happy childhood, and Vice's dad was a drunkard who beat him, and his mom was dead. There are a few other points where like Vice is pretty much envious of Denim's life, but they're still like best friends forever, and Vice doesn't really mention it much. So it kind of like, you can kind of like when you start the game, you like, I don't remember what happens because it's been a while, but you can tell Vice is just like a little asshole. He's like a pill like the whole game until you get to like this key point in the game where Denim is given a choice to like, he's working for one of these kingdoms that wants to rule the island, and he's given a choice by his general, and he's like, the general comes to him at night and he says, you need to murder this entire village. And Denim's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, we're going to murder this village and we're going to blame it on the other kingdom, and then we're going to come in and rescue everybody and we're going to be the heroes. It's a perfect plan. So Denim's like, you're given the choice, and this is like a pivotal choice in the game. You're given a choice, and Vice is with you, but you're given a choice. Denim can say, you know what, yeah, I'll murder the village. I understand this is a bigger plan and this will work out. This is probably for the greater good. And then the second choice is like, no, fuck that. That's fucking awful. That's murder. Right? So you can pick any of them, and it drastically changes how the game plays out. But essentially, if you pick the first choice, which is like murder the village, Vice will come up to you and be like, don't murder the village. That's awful. You're a murderer. You're terrible. I'll never be friends with you again. You're my mortal enemy now. So he like uses this as an excuse to like try to kill Denim. He's like, I'm going to kill you now because you're evil. So you would assume that, let's go back in time, which the game lets you do. You can go back in time and change your choice to like, How about I choose not to do it? Like, I refuse to kill this village, and I'm going to turn on my general, and I'm going to go rogue against my kingdom, and I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop you from doing this. If you do that, Vice, he comes to you and he says, you know what? Killing the village is the only logical choice. Like, what are you doing? Like, he's completely flipped based on what Denham's choice is. So Denham, Vice to me has no principles in this scenario. Either like he will kill the village or he won't, depending on Denham's choice. And the only reason this is because he resents Denham and he's going to use this as an excuse to attack Denham, and that's it, right? Does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I hope so, because this is a key point. And like, ultimately, I think Vice's envy of Denham and his resentment of Denham drives his decision making process, not his personal ethics. So Vice has no personal ethics. He doesn't care if the village gets murdered. He doesn't care if the village gets saved. All he cares about is doing the opposite of what Denham does, because I hate Denham and I want to kill Denham and I want an excuse to kill Denham. And one of these choices gives me that excuse, because I can take the opposite choice and I can hold myself to a higher standard at that point. Does that drive any additional questions? There's other points I have about this. So.
It's super. I was gonna write down interesting. It's like my question. I don't know. Is a person allowed to do that? And what I mean by that is a person allowed to say, look, here's this person that I don't like, and I'm going to create my own system of retribution against this person. I think I'm picking up where this game is going. Is it okay for me to do that and just selectively disregard who else I grant personhood to? I think that's crazy to do. So the question would be, Vice, as he's aptly named, is he a good guy or a bad guy?
So this game doesn't really have good guys or bad guys. So if you pick if you pick the murder the village, like, it's interesting because if you pick murder the village, the outcome is actually better like at the end game than if you pick not to. But that's like besides the point, because the game's narrative like doesn't have a good or bad. Like, it has a bunch of different endings, but none of them are clearly good or bad. Some of them seem bad, but they have a silver lining, etc. So it really emphasizes the fact that like maybe you could kill a village and blame and like frame another kingdom for it, and maybe that does have good outcomes. But that's kind of like besides the point. But for Vice, I think you're asking if he could do that. I don't know if he could do that. I think the question I had about Vice was like, do internal motives actually matter for your decision? So in one decision, Vice will kill a village because Denham decided not to. But in another one, Vice won't kill the village because Denham decided to kill the village. So in this one, he's going to attack Denham and try to stop him from killing the village, which, in my opinion, that's the morally righteous thing to do. So Vice would then be doing the morally righteous thing, but he's doing it for just reasons that are not moral, like, or they're not good reasons. He's doing it because he's envious of Denham and he's just being contrary to Denham. Like that, so he doesn't have a good motive for saving the village, in my opinion. Does that even matter at that point? Right? You get what I'm saying? Like, does the motive actually matter in this situation?
That's I want to say it was a paper. It's Philippa Foot and the Doctrine of the Double Effect. We talk about it talks about it's like does what you're aiming at matter, right? Like, and I think it was kind of, she was applying it to like maybe abortion, I think, or gets applied to abortion, like when you kill a child to save the mother, right? Like, your aim is not killing a child. You're doing that. You're absolutely doing that, right? If you want to believe that way. But you also are actively saving the mother. That is why ultimately I think I really get down to that. Like, you just, if you can argue for it, the world is whatever you can argue for. Like,
Yeah,
really.
and that I don't like that answer, but I tend to like side with you, but I don't like that answer. And I think we've talked about this before, but No, I agree with you. In that situation of killing the baby to save the mother, I think it's the exact same problem actually. So I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think your example is just way more extreme because we're talking about Vice's internal motives, whereas like that is what drives him to save the village, right, or save the mother. His bad action in his head drives him to save the village. In yours, a bad action in real life, killing a baby, saves the mother. But to me, they're similar. So is that good or bad? I have no idea.
Either one, I think. Because like in any one of these, like when we talk about good or bad, I think a lot of us would say, who does it matter to, right? So like if in his head he's like, I just want don't want I just want to do the opposite of what this person does. Um, and that person wants to do something bad, so he does something good. That who does that matter to? What does it matter to Vice? What does it matter to Denim? Or what does it matter to the people that didn't get slaughtered and didn't get an atomic
Yeah, it
bomb?
certainly means a lot to the people who didn't get killed, right?
Yeah. So those are the people that are going to choose one way on the argument, right? The world is so just like it's hard to create a rule, right? Because the rule is going to be applied differently depending on who you ask. The people that get murdered are going to be like, no, depends on what Denham says, because whatever Denham says, Vice is going to do the opposite. So let's hope that Denham says he wants to murder us.
Yeah, imagine the villagers come up to Vice and they're like, "Vice, you saved us. You're our hero." And he's like, "Fuck you. I only wanted to do it to get back at Denim." Like would that make them like hate him? Like probably like not. I would say I would be like, "Well, you still saved us, buddy. Like, thank you."
He's like, that's fine. He's weird. He's a weirdo. But we like him.
He's a weirdo for sure. So another thing I thought was interesting about Vice's situation, and I think I might have tried to shoehorn this in, and you can tell me if I didn't, but I thought Vice's responses were like kind of like a subtle trolley problem, which you can see I made this graphic here. So if Denham chooses to save the village, Vice tries to kill the village, which means he flips the lever to make the trolley go down the path with more people, right?
Right.
But if Denham chooses to kill the village, Vice instead tries to save the villagers and kill Denham, which he's only killing one person at that point. So he keeps it on the same track. And you can see here there's a Denham track and there's a villager track. He keeps it on the track going towards one person, which is just Denham, right? And so in this way, Vice is kind of, I think, playing out a trolley problem. And he's not thinking about it like this because he's just a contrarian fuck who hates Denham. But to me, it seemed kind of trolley problem-esque in that one situation kills more people than the other, and he has the choice on that. I don't know. Maybe that was shoehorned in a little bit, but I don't know. I think it's interesting.
We got to talk about that image. It's awesome. It's really awesome. I wonder though, because this is your review. At this point, I'm at my own trolley switch here. Do we want to talk about trolley problems, or do we want to talk about Tactics Ogre? Not as a problem. Like, do you want? Because I can go either way. Either one is enjoyable to me. Because I'm thinking, I have a lot of thoughts on one way about the trolley problem. I have a lot of thoughts on the way like that exists as the way you've talked about it in the game as well.
Sure, I think we've covered it like most everything, so I think we can get into trolley problems. There's one other thing that I wanted to go over before we get into trolley problems, and we can probably end this with trolley problems, I think, because trolley problems are interesting, I think, because trolley problems can go a long way, but I think there's a few other things that I wanted to go over, and I think we'd be done with the outline that you sent me, but let me get another glass of wine, and then we can start that, okay?
Absolutely, yeah. Awesome.
So I think the last point that I think you asked about was retribution. So I think the retribution point is really interesting, and I think it goes into resentment and it goes into regret as well. So I think it's a good tie-in. Retribution is extremely important in this game because the entire war, like all the fighting, I think is just based on retribution. So I think we talked about this earlier when I was in the hospital and my wife was giving birth to my son, was that the aspect of generational despair. So in this game you can see, I go over this in this one image which encapsulates it right here. You can see Denham, he says, "The hatred I bear for you is anything but young. I carry on the struggle of my father and his father before him. I am the wrath of the Wallister." So Denham's whole motive, at least getting into like the war, was to avenge his father and his family who were killed in the war. It's not about politics. It's not about land distribution. It's about, look, dude, you killed my dad. Like, fuck you. That's what it's about, and I want retribution on whoever the fuck killed my dad. That's what his motive is, and that's what a lot of people's motives are in this game. And it's interesting. It's really good because this is a really good point, I think, and I'll try to explain it. But let's say I'll give a scenario, and like let's say you see this screenshot here, this battle. Let's pretend we kill a guy in this battle. 2 battles from now, we encounter a woman who's attacking us who says, you killed my father 2 battles ago. So what I think it illustrates within the game itself is that, and they'll say it in the game, they'll be like, you killed my dad like 2 years ago or 2 days ago in the battle of blank, which you just did 2 battles ago. In that way, she's not even attacking you because she has moral differences or political differences or land disputes. She's attacking you because you killed her dad. Just like the reason you are fighting. You're fighting to get retribution for your dad. You're perpetuating this cycle of violence, and the game actually forces that on you just by playing it. That's the impression that I got from the game, which I thought maybe I'm reading it more into it than I should, but I really like that impression of the game, I think, and I think it's a good point because in the writer Matsuno, he drills it in. Like almost every other fight is like, you killed my dad 2 fights ago, or you killed my mom 2 fights ago, and that's the main reason they're attacking you. And there's even some points where like Denham has to explain, like later on, Denham matures a little bit, and later on he'll be like, I'm doing this for the greater good of Valeria, and your dad attacked me. Like, he'll try to justify it, like later on when he's mature, but like ultimately, dude, you still killed that girl's dad. Like, she hates you, Like, they don't care for the reason why you did it. You killed her dad. And I think when I brought this up to you originally, you said that this was very much like Romeo and Juliet, which I agree, because in Romeo and Juliet, you have these 2 houses, right? The Montagues and the Capulets, I think they are. And they just hate each other. And I think we're so far into their history during the time of Romeo and Juliet that they don't even really know why they hate each other. Maybe it's explained, but I don't think they know why. They just they know we don't like that other house, so fuck that. And eventually this resentment and this retribution ends up killing Romeo and Juliet, simply because the 2 houses hate each other and they don't really know why. So yeah, that's I think the last theme that I think is really important in this game is retribution and cyclical violence that's needless if we just stopped fucking killing each other, or somebody was just like, you know what, I'm done, fuck this. It just keeps going and going, and every time you kill somebody, you're killing somebody's husband or you're killing somebody's wife, because everybody's related in some way, Okay, I've been ranting. Sorry, that's it.
No, you're good. You're good. Well, that's awesome. I think it's like I'm as you're telling all this, and it's good. It's so good. Like I'm thinking, and I love that you brought up Romeo and Juliet because I've been taking notes. I'm going back to these 3 little brief points I made like you got your character who's trying to avenge the death of his dad. Right? You got Luke Skywalker there, right? Who thinks his dad he doesn't know it's Darth Vader yet. You got plenty of characters there. But then you've got the other character that seems like maybe not like a main character at all, that's doing the exact same main character as he is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you just kill them. You kill them and move on, yeah.
Yeah. But there's this human desire to complete a story. And I don't know, I feel like it was abstracting it out to I don't know, I've talked about my obsessive needs.
Talk towards the camera.
Sorry, yeah. I've talked about my obsessive need, and you've talked about your need to complete video games, to complete stories.
Yeah.
You recognize that we're not the main character, but I like that you brought up Romeo and Juliet because I wrote down my first note while you were talking was Hamlet, right? Hamlet and the Lion King, maybe. Where there's a character that someone's killed their dad, and they got to go avenge their dad. Simba doesn't kill so many people. Hamlet, there's a few people that end up in the wake. But that's a story that, I don't know, even myself, not to get too personal, but my dad died and no one killed him. But like, I don't know. I want to avenge my dad by being a good, cool person. Maybe because that's what these stories do to us. I think it's like, and there's other people that when they just distill it into a score, oh, it's it's 6.5 out of 10 because the save system. You're like, shut the fuck up, because like honestly, like I'm gonna have fun with any game that I want to, or not want to. Like Tactics Ogre seems like a fantastic game. But that's what it reminded me of, like Hamlet and Romeo and Juliet and The Lion King, and just of course you are. But like Simba, Scar was a person too, you know. Scar was a person too, and I think maybe that's one of the themes, right? It's like the humanization or the de-villainization, right, of the enemy. Because there's no enemies. It's almost like this psychosis we go through. We're like, that's my enemy. That's my enemy. I killed her dad, and I gotta kill her now, right? Because like she's mad that I killed her dad, and then I'm the good guy. I'm the hero of the story.
Yeah, exactly. I think. No. I agree with you, and I think it goes into the last point, which I didn't even put on the note. Which I think my last point here is I totally forgot about this, but this thing that I call moral sunk cost. So similar to like the sunk cost fallacy, which it is, but instead of money, it's morals or ethics. So, like, what this is, and I think I explain it better here than I could probably do it here. I say, suppose you embark on what you believe is a morally righteous goal, such as a religious crusade. However, along the way, you cause death, destruction, and injustice to everyone you encounter, all without knowing, or all without making any real progress towards your goal. So you've killed a bunch of people for a moral goal, but you haven't made any real progress. At this point, upon reflection, you have like two options. One is you stop your crusade altogether, or you continue your crusade, right? You either stop or you start up again, and you keep doing it for your morally righteous cause. But ultimately, why would you stop? Because all those lives we killed, all those people that we killed for the crusade, was it really worth nothing? Like, did we just really kill all these people for no reason? No, of course we didn't. So we have to keep going. You know, we've already caused all these problems. We have to see this through to the end. So that's what I call moral sunk costs, is that, we've already done all these atrocities for such a good goal that we need to keep going. Hey, if you want to discuss that for a second, I gotta say night to my daughter. So if you have any notes on that you can talk about,
I'll talk about it for a minute. What was the last thing you said?
Moral sunk cost. If you kill a bunch of people for a righteous cause, are you really gonna stop?
I'll talk about it as long as we can.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Moral sunk cost. I understand the concept. I think it only matters, honestly, to the people that are going to frame their worldview as such. It is so easy to transition someone's worldview into something else. Like the view on the dropping of the bomb. I mean, the dropping of the bomb, I think there's a reason David Lynch included it. It was basically 15 minutes or 8 minutes. It was a good portion of an entire episode of the third season of Twin Peaks. Was the dropping of an atom bomb. The extinguishing of so much human life. Each one that mattered to yourself as much as you, or mattered to themselves as much as you matter to yourself. It's a large act. It's a frightening act. So I think when someone says, almost like me personally, like when someone says, okay, I'm going to move on from the bad thing. The bad thing's done. It's fine. You have to move on, because the moving on doesn't. It doesn't care. It doesn't care what you think or how a human being feels. No one cares that you're moving on. Let's look at, for a second, you might be able to hear it. I'm going to play. I'm going to control my volume on. Try to look at Rod Waves Moving On. It's a great song. So I think honestly that quite makes the point. That's the entire point I was trying. And so let me go back. Theme in a video game is important because theme usually, when it is identified by a person, it is not arbitrary. Theme is not arbitrary at all. Like, and you can never be wrong about a theme. If I ask my son what's the theme of this book, and he looks at it and he doesn't know how to read really, but he knows his ABCs and a couple words, like, he's gonna be like, it's ABCs, Dad. And that's the theme. It's a totally valid theme. It tells me something about the consciousness of my son, and I love my son. And I love the consciousness of other human beings. And to interact with computer games, or to like open up the consciousness through them, it's a valuable thing. And if someone on Reddit.com wants to tell my friend that, like, I don't know.
What about Reddit.com? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, if someone on Reddit comes to my friend, like, I'm a lawyer and I got lawyer points. I'm gonna be like, fuck you for investing in the machine. All right, and you don't know. You tell me I'm using dashes wrong. Like, you don't understand lines or scripts or anything. You don't understand invention.
No, I agree. That guy was totally out of bounds. That guy was totally out of bounds. He was out. He was off base. That's why I went so hard on him. I didn't send that last message. I'm done with that guy. There's no reason to talk to him.
Yeah, he's trash. He's gutter trash. He's gutter trash, like through and through.
Yeah,
Let's move on.
I just want to say, like, about the Romeo and Juliet thing. So this line here says, even the game mechanics serve to further emphasize this theme, which is generational despair, or you killed my mom, fuck you, by demonstrating how minor battles can escalate into more revenge-driven conflicts. For instance, after eliminating an enemy unit in one battle, their spouse may appear in the next battle seeking revenge. Of course, in the interest of unifying Valeria, you have to eliminate the vengeful spouse as well, thus continuing the cycle of violence. So this is the only reason that they fight on the island. They don't know this, but it is. And that's why they're idiots. But, you know, what can you do? They're video game characters. You can't tell them what to do. You can in this game a little bit, but you can't tell them exactly what to do.
It's interesting that you can control. Like, what the fuck is a computer game at this point? Because I'm looking, you're sliding in at the different angles, sliding back out of the angles. Like, you can control them. You have absolute control of them, but you have zero control of them. You can only watch them from A to Z, and you can move there in different ways.
Yeah. So Tactics Ogre, like I don't know what this battle is. I know this map because you play on the same maps a lot, but Like, let's say at the start of this battle, somebody came to you and was like, I'm only fighting so I can feed my family of 4, and I'm a mercenary." And Denham's like, well, fuck you, you're in my way. And you're just forced to kill him. Like, you can choose how you move around the map and your unit choices and how you attack and which moves you use, etc. But I mean, ultimately, the end goal is just kill all these people. Like kill them, get rid of them, and move on to the next thing. And then yeah, that's it. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting for sure. Who knows? Only time will tell, or some other platitude that people use. I'm not sure. I think there was something else I wanted to say. Yeah, go ahead.
From Denham's perspective, like if you're following the narrative that you played from Denham's perspective, and it's probably going to be one of the 3 main words, maybe. But what's one word that if you cannot, if you want to have the best discussion possible about this game, you've probably already said it. I don't know. I am not reaching for anything. I really don't know. But what's one word that you got to talk about? You got this is what's the one word that is this game?
So, if you ask from Denham's perspective, if you were Denham, the end of the game, like I think any ending you get, and I thought like 2 of them. I think there's like technically 4 different endings. But at each one, he's like at a different point. And in one, he like rules Valeria, but his sister has killed herself because like of despair. So he's like, I rule Valeria now, but like my sister's dead. One of them, his sister's alive, but like Valeria's destroyed. So he's like, my sister's alive, but like my homeland is fucking fucked. There's other ones too where like, there's one dude where like Vice, like he like tries to kill Denham. Denham has to strike him down, and he feels bad about it. And then like 10 hours later in the game, like some necromancer raises Vice, and Vice comes up as a zombie, and he's like, I hate you, Denham. Like, and he's like, I hate you for like being better than me, but also you killed me too. And Denham's like, oh my god, like what is going on? He's like so distraught. Like, there's no happy ending for Denham in this game. So I think for him, the last word would probably be like regret, and that's what the whole bending of time is. Like, you can use this. They call it the world tarot in this game, but you can go back in time to any point in the story, make different changes, and it branches off into a different timeline, and you can see what happens, and you can recruit characters that way that you might have missed on a different timeline, etc., etc. But ultimately, that's what this is. The game's about regret and like maybe changing your actions to get a better outcome, but realizing that every outcome, something fucked up happened along the way that you're going to regret, and that you can go back in time 1,000 times and change it, but each one of those timelines, something fucked up is going to happen that you're going to regret, and you're going to want to redo. And you could potentially probably just sit there. There's probably a good sci-fi novel in this, is like go back in time over and over again to try to get the perfect timeline where you don't regret anything. But I think one of the main things that it tries to hone in is that if you do this over and over again, there's going to be something that you're going to regret. It's not going to be perfect. You probably shouldn't ever go back in time to begin with. It's probably a fucked up idea. It's probably something you should never do to begin with because it could probably make you go crazy. So yeah, that's what I think. I think that's what happens at the end. Denham goes crazy by going back in time all the time and trying to rewrite the past, and that's it.
No, and I think no, that's it. And you said it earlier. I mean, when we started it, I mean, it's a good place to like kind of conclude. Really, is like I don't know what the question was, but it's another word, and you said redo, and that's it, right? Like, that's a big question. Like redo, is there a point to a redo? Because it doesn't matter because you don't know. You don't know what a redo would do, so don't do it.
Exactly. You don't know what a
Don't
redo would
do
do. That's a great line, actually. I really like that line. And I think it's also interesting that, in the PSP version they added like, oh, you can actually redo your turns in battle now as well. Like, so like everything you can redo in the game. Like literally everything. Do you want to redo it or not? Like, you can do that if you want to, and it just kind of reinforces the idea that like, oh, everything's redoable, but like something fucked up might happen. I don't know.
Don't redo it. Just do it. Just, and that's the Nike slogan, right? Like just fucking do it. But yeah, if you redo it, it's
Well, we did promise a trolley problem. We can maybe talk about, like, before we conclude, like 10 minutes of the trolley problem, because we did say we were going to talk about the trolley problem. I think there's an image for the trolley problem here. I think one thing I missed, and I was trying to tie in my summer friend story, is that in this article you can see I'm trying to. Oh, here, let me read this part to you. And I don't really want to go in deep into this because it's kind of like a thing, but the reason I mentioned all the regret and the resentment in the first half of the essay was for this paragraph here, which was, we can move on to the trolley problem after this, but it says, the relationship between Vice and Denim captured my attention since I have experienced similar emotions of envy towards my own friends, specifically jealousy towards their perceived superiority in certain aspects of life when compared to myself. For example, my summer friend was more athletic and popular than I was. My high school friend was able to play multiple instruments and was more motivated to complete college than I was. Why can't I be like them? It's easy to play the victim instead of examining your own faults and improving yourself. Vice's behavior reminded me of what I might do if I succumbed to the darker facets of my own personality. Ultimately, I saw myself in Vice, and that's a tad bit scary. And I will tell you that Vice is basically the only character I related to in this game, which was also more scary. But I think that's normal. I think Vice is actually a window into people, and I think Vice gives in to all of his dark thoughts 100%, whereas most people might only give in to him 25 to 50% of the time. But Vice is kind of a mirror that's like, this is what you're feeling, and I'm going to actually act on those feelings. That's what Vice is. So I think there's, like, maybe not saying, like, I related to Vice, and I think he's the only character I really related to, but I think everybody has Vice or a piece of Vice in them. I think everybody can relate to Vice and his envy towards his friends and his family and anybody who's better than him. I think everybody has those thoughts on some level, and it's just how we manage them. I thought that was important. But if you have anything to say on that, that's fine, but then we should move on to the trolley problem.
Let's go on to the trolley problem.
Okay, so we have the trolley problem, which is basically like, everybody has the trolley problem, I would imagine. It's like you have a lever right here. Vice has a lever. He can make it so that it runs over one person or it runs over four people. Which one? Which one does he pick? What would you pick? Let's just start with, like, what you think is the better one, and then I'll agree or disagree.
I mean, it's like, oh my goodness, it is. I can't dismiss it. It's just such a beautiful problem. It is such a beautiful problem.
No, let me start, actually, because I think I have a harder line on this than you do. I think Vice should kill Denim, or in this case, the one person. I don't see why anybody wouldn't do that, to be honest.
What if you didn't? What if you were just like Galactus, right? What if you're Galactus and you've just been munching worlds? Like these six dudes aren't gonna matter. If you're this guy here, okay. If the trolley problem is like if I'm like specifically this guy loaded in, and I've been playing as him or experiencing the story to be sympathetic to him, perhaps, perchance.
No. Let's remove the game from it, and let's just discuss the trolley problem. So we have one person and we have four people, and we have a lever. Which one is better ultimately to pick? Is it the one person or the four people? I would argue that it's the one person. I have a hard time seeing otherwise.
Okay, I would argue. What about this? He doesn't. If it's switched to kill the four people, he leaves it because like there's a terrorist plot that he knows about, right? Like that's 5,000 miles away. He teleports instant transmissions because it's Goku, and Goku saves people. I know that's absurd, but like to isolate like one problem, yeah, in complexity or in simplicity. Let me do that. I think that's better. Let's be granted. There's no way. Let me not. I can't smuggle in all the Goku shit in a vacuum. One person versus five people. is it not worth discussing because like that never happens? There's never only 4 or 5. There's never only 6 people existing.
I think the real life question would be like, it would be like, let me say, like, let's say, like, in the terms of like medical experiments. Let's say you had a medical experiment that you needed to complete, and you knew that if you completed it, it would actually save 1,000 lives. Um, but in the process of completing it, you have to do this heinous test on one dude that kills him ultimately. Like, that would be the real life scenario, or maybe a real life scenario, like a hard sci-fi, like we were talking about the other day scenario. Like, in that scenario, would we do the test on the one dude, kill him to save the potentially thousands of people with the vaccine or whatever that we developed from this test?
Okay, I got something. I got something. Are you ready? Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay. Is it because I've never read anything like this, and it's probably just really stupid. But okay, if we could just take one dude, like alive right now, like it could be me, it could be you, but it could be Jackie Chan, anybody, draw straws. But one dude, he gets like infinite torture, right? Like he's literally in pain forever, forever, like infinitely in pain. But just one dude. But everyone else forever gets like utmost pleasure and joy and like just like whatever you want, whatever your heart's desire. Slow down, speed up, smarter, dumber, relive lives. Like you are God. To make everyone else gods, like one random person will literally be like the fucking like skin flayed, like twisted. Is that not that's a trolley problem, I think it still is. I'm gonna
No,
call it the most
no.
trolley.
That's absolutely a trolley problem. I think no, I think it's I think everybody wants to go to like, yeah, let's torture the person because everybody will be happy. I think everybody wants to go to that, and that makes sense to me.
Go ahead.
But for a second, imagine if that person was you.
Yeah.
You know, in that case, like, you know, I might have different opinions about this. You know, like who's got to be the person? But like anybody else would argue, who cares what you think? Like you're just one dude. There's thousands of people that we're helping with this. Like, but like to me, I'm like, no, you know, you're torturing me forever. I don't want to be tortured forever. You know, so like I don't know. It's fucked up. I would say from an outsider perspective, it's very easy to just say torture the one person for sure. But is that the right thing to do? I don't know.
Zero tolerance as well, right? Like you never get used to the torture. So yeah, no, it's so hard. I think at that extreme, it's like that makes it seem like oh, I love it. I'm gonna explore that more because like I mean, when you think 4 versus 2 lives and it's a train, okay, one thing, but torture forever for just one dude, he gets tortured forever, and the billions, like literally, like dude, it won't be you, it won't be, but the person that it is, dude, how could you ever look him in the face?
Yeah, you would like put him in a room and be like, I never want to see that guy. Like he's tortured forever. Just leave him in there. I don't want to see him. Like I don't want to hear words from him. I don't want to know how he's doing. I know he's tortured. So I like this. This junkie.com, they have the trolley problem explained. Who should you kill? So let's see. Junkie.com's figured this out. So, so let's see what they have to say about it. All right, they have a nice image of the trolley problem here. I'm going to throw you straight into a ridiculous scenario and ask you to roll with it. If the scenario is the trolley problem, I already know the scenario. Let's see. In defense, oh, this is our friend Miles' stance, who's actually our summer friend. So, in defense of doing nothing. So there's when I ask some people, they're like, well, I'm not going to do anything with it. I don't, you know, I'm just an outside observer. Why do I have to flip the switch? You know, that's the argument, right? Like, oh, if I'm put in this situation, why am I put in this situation? I don't have to do anything. But in my opinion, you not doing anything, you're in the situation. If you're not doing anything, that's something. And if it's already on the track to kill 4 people and you could have averted that, then you're partly responsible or fully responsible for not switching the track to the one person or vice versa. right? So I don't think doing nothing is a valid response here. This guy says the argument in favor of doing nothing and letting the train nail the 5 people is pretty straightforward. If you pull the lever, you are causing the death of one person. Causing people to die seems like killing. And killing people is wrong, ergo, we shouldn't pull the lever. But in this situation, by not pulling the lever, you're killing the other people that the train's already headed for. So this is nonsense to me. This is junkie.com, so we probably shouldn't give this any light of day, but, go ahead.
I don't know. I mean, I think the problem, it persists because it's such a. It's interesting. It makes you think about what do you value. You almost always have to bring in other things. You have to. You have to. If you're put in a trolley problem situation, that will never happen. You will never just wake up and there's a white background and you're a meme and there's a switch and there's a. It's never going to happen.
True.
So where you find blame is. It's difficult, but that's why the trolley problem persists. Though, it's something you want to explore.
Right. I was watching House the other day with my wife, or last night actually, and there's an episode in season 5, which season 5 is really good, by the way. And you've probably seen it, but it's an episode called Wilson, and Wilson, his friend has cancer, and his friend asks him like, "Can you donate like half of your liver to me?" And like House and everybody around Wilson is like, "No, that's extremely dangerous. You could die, and that could cause complications down the road." But Wilson's like, "He's my friend. I should donate my liver to him." So in this situation, I kind of thought of the trolley problem, and like, if you're a doctor and you match your patient, should you just be donating your organs to him? Like, or is your value as a doctor higher than them? That you should preserve your organs because you could save lives down the road, right? And potentially giving your organs away could kill you sooner, right? So that's what I think the problem persisted from this episode, which is why I like the episode. And that was the question. Ultimately, Wilson did donate part of his liver because he's a nice guy. But was that the right thing for him to do? It did save the guy's life. It did. But what if another one of his friends says, "Oh, give me the other half of your liver," or "Give me another little part of your liver," or "Give me a heart transplant," or whatever. Like, yeah. And if and the utilitarian part comes in is if all doctors start doing this, that seems like a problem to me, because if all doctors are just giving away their organs, even the ones they don't need, that could potentially cause a lot of doctors to die down the road. And we need doctors to save people. So from a utilitarian perspective, I would say, maybe you shouldn't have doctors be just giving their organs willy-nilly to patients. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's also the classic problem of this should probably be the last one, but I think I heard this on a stream or something where let's say you, Pablo, you wake up and you are attached to a person who is dying. Yeah. And there's a tube attached to them from you and it's keeping them alive. And let's say, like, in this situation, would you be in the moral right? They kidnapped you to hook you up in this situation, right? Let's say in this situation, would you be in the moral right to get up and say, "You know what, fuck you, you kidnapped me to hook me up to this guy. It might be saving him, but you kidnapped me and violated my autonomy to do it. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to leave and this guy's going to die. And fuck you because you violated my autonomy to begin with." Would you be in the moral right in that situation? Or would you be in the wrong because you're basically killing the dude that you're hooked up to, even if it's against your will?
The moral right, according to me, to everybody, to some supposed universal moral right. That's why I think that's why it makes it's so hard and so interesting. That's why I think the piece that you wrote was like really good. Is that like it's so hard. The trolley problem. It highlights. It's not that the trolley problem is interesting at all. I don't think the trolley problem is interesting. I think what's cool about it is that it highlights the thing about us, like that part of us that wants to argue, that part of us that wants to figure out, okay, yes, there's something good, there's something bad about it, and let's discuss it. And I think that kind of confrontation is what comes out and bleeds into the kinds of like media we consume, the things we write about, the things we think about, and the things we talk about.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But until then, if anybody was watching, thanks for watching. I will upload this on YouTube eventually. I'll have to cut out these freaking parts where I was freaking muted because I was drunk. But other than that, it was fun. Pablo, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think it was. I can't wait to see the production on YouTube. It's really effing awesome. And I appreciate it, homeboy.
Hell yeah.
Later.
I'll talk to you. Peace out.